When my grandmother passed away, the family left it to me to clear out her old Victorian home. The house had always unnerved me, but duty outweighed fear. I saved the attic for last, dreading its cobwebbed corners and cracking beams. The staircase to the attic was steep and narrow, the kind that seemed to breathe with the house. As I pushed open the heavy wooden door, a musty odor hit me, thick and cloying, like forgotten memories. The weak bulb overhead flickered as if struggling to stay alive. Boxes of yellowed papers and antique furniture lined the space, but what caught my eye was a trunk in the far corner. It was unlike anything else in the attic, polished and well kept. Boxes of yellowed papers and antique furniture lined the space, but what caught my eye was a trunk in the far corner. It was unlike anything else in the attic, polished and well kept, as though it didn't belong. My grandmother had never mentioned it. Curiosity got the better of me. I knelt down and opened the trunk, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside were oddities: a cracked porcelain doll with hollow eyes, a bundle of aged letters, and at the bottom, a small, intricately carved wooden box. When I opened the box, I found a mirror no larger than my palm. Its surface wasn't reflective, but a murky gray, as though something had been trapped behind it. I felt a chill run down my spine as I held it up, and the dim light caught its surface. That's when I saw her. At first, it was faint, a shadowy figure in the mirror, just over my shoulder. I spun around, but the attic was empty. I looked back at the mirror. She was closer now, her face pale, eyes sunken, and lips stretched into a grotesque smile. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut, and the bulb above me shattered, plunging the room into complete darkness. I scrambled to my feet, the mirror clattering to the floor. In the dim light from the single attic window, I saw her, no longer in the mirror, but standing a few feet away. She whispered my name, her voice dry and brittle, like leaves crumbling underfoot. My legs felt rooted to the spot. Then she lunged at me. I don't remember much after that. I woke up hours later, lying at the bottom of the attic stairs. The door was wide open. The mirror and the trunk were gone, as if they'd never existed. I left the house that night and never went back. They sold the house to another family a month later. Sometimes I wonder if they found the attic's secret, or if she found them first. It started with the footsteps. I'd moved into the old house a month ago, a creaky, century-old fixer-upper with peeling wallpaper and uneven floors. At first, I chalked up the noises to the house settling, wood contracting, pipes groaning. But the footsteps were distinct, and always above me, coming from the attic. The first time I heard them, it was around 2 a.m. I was lying in bed when the sound of shuffling steps dragged across the ceiling. My heart raced, but I told myself it was just my imagination. Still, I couldn't quite fall asleep. The next morning, I worked up the nerve to go check it out. I climbed the narrow attic stairs, flashlight in hand, and opened the hatch. Dust hung in the air like an oppressive fog. Old boxes, broken furniture, and an antique rocking chair sat in the gloom. Nothing seemed out of place, but I felt watched. Later that night, the footsteps returned. This time, they were faster, heavier, and stopped directly above my bedroom. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Grabbing a kitchen knife, I went back to the attic. My pulse thundered as I opened the hatch again. The air was colder than before. As I scanned the space with my flashlight, the beam landed on something new. A small pile of food wrappers and a worn blanket, neatly folded in the corner. My stomach dropped. Someone had been living up here. A sudden thud came from behind me. I whipped around, the flashlight shaking in my hand. Standing there, illuminated in the beam, was a man. He was gaunt, his clothes filthy, and his eyes wide with something between fear and madness. He lunged at me before I could scream. We crashed to the floor, and the knife skittered out of my hand. I scrambled to my feet and ran, slamming the attic door shut behind me. I wedged a chair under the handle and called the police, my voice trembling. When they arrived, the attic was empty. The blanket and wrappers were both gone, but the officers found scuffed footprints leading to a crawl space that exited into the backyard. I moved out the next week. Sometimes late at night, I hear footsteps in my new apartment. I tell myself it's just the neighbors, but deep down, I know better. The house was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense woods in upstate New York. I had inherited it from my late great-uncle, a man I barely remembered meeting as a child. The house was old, creaky, and filled with an unsettling silence that seemed to press in from the walls. The attic, in particular, was the kind of place that felt like it held secrets. It was accessible by a rickety pull-down ladder that groaned under my weight. The air up there was thick, with the smell of mold and dust, and beams of light cut through gaps in the floor, illuminating the clutter. I was up there looking for old family documents when I found it. A black and white photograph sitting on top of a wooden chest. It wasn't in a frame, just loosely resting there, as if someone had left it for me to find. The photo showed a group of people standing in front of the house. A man, a woman, and 2 children. Something about it made my skin crawl. People looked normal at first glance, but their faces were wrong. Their eyes were slightly too wide, their smiles stretched unnaturally, and the longer I stared, the more it felt like they were staring back at me. I turned it over. Written on the back in faded ink were the words, "The Thompsons, 1924. They're still here." A chill ran down my spine, and I suddenly felt exposed, like I wasn't alone. I quickly shoved the photo back into the chest and slammed the lid shut. And that's when I heard it. A specific, odd sound, faint but distinct. It was children laughing. It came from the far corner of the attic, where the shadows seemed unnaturally thick. I froze, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The laughter grew louder, more sinister, and then a child's voice whispered, "Don't leave us." I didn't stay to see where the voice came from. I stumbled down the attic ladder, barely managing to pull it up behind me. I locked the hatch and fled the house, heart pounding in my chest. Later, when I tried to explain the experience to a friend, they suggested I looked up the house's history. I did. The Thompsons were the family that lived there in the 1920s. They were murdered in their sleep, and their killer was never found. I sold the house the next week and never looked back. But sometimes when I'm alone, I swear I can hear faint laughter in the distance, as if the Thompson family followed me.